Okay, so if you're a parent, this probably sounds familiar. It is noon on a Saturday and your teenager is completely passed out. So is that just laziness, or could it be something else? Something much more important. Today we're going to dig into some new research that might just flip everything you thought you knew about your teen's sleep habits. Right, so here's the big question. Laziness or survival? For years, the answer felt pretty obvious, didn't it? But some really groundbreaking science is starting to reframe this whole thing, not as a character flaw, but as a potential survival instinct. For decades, the rule we all heard was super simple. A consistent sleep schedule is everything. Sleeping in on the weekends, that was supposed to cause something called social jet lag. But, well, new science is telling a very, very different story. It turns out, for teenagers, this catch-up sleep isn't just nice to have. It can actually be a huge protective factor for their mental health. So how in the world did we get here? Let's dive in and break down exactly how this old golden rule of sleep is being seriously challenged by what we're now learning about the adolescent brain. First off, let's talk about the classic villain in this story, social jet lag. The idea is pretty simple, right? When you sleep late on the weekends, you throw your internal body clock out of whack with your weekday schedule. And that mismatch, it was always seen as this major negative, linked to being more tired and even an increased risk of depression. Now, while social jet lag is definitely a real thing, what's so fascinating is that new research on chronically sleep-deprived teens has uncovered this powerful counter effect, one that might just be way more important. And that brings us to the hero of our new story, compensatory sleep. You've probably just called it catch-up sleep. All it is the simple act of sleeping a bit longer on weekends to pay back that sleep debt that builds up during a crazy busy school week. And wow, this is where you really see the stakes. The studies are incredibly clear and honestly pretty stunning. Teens who got that extra hour or two of sleep on the weekends didn't just feel a bit more rested, they showed a significantly lower risk of depression and even suicidal thoughts. So the big question is, what's actually happening in their brains to cause this protective effect? To get that, we basically need to pop the hood and take a look at the unique, kind of chaotic state of the adolescent brain. It's a place of amazing growth, for sure, but also some serious imbalance. All right, first up, meet the amygdala. Just think of this as the brain's raw emotion center. In teenagers, this thing is fully developed, and it's firing on all cylinders. It's the source of all those powerful, intense feelings that are just so, well, so teenage. But then, on the other hand, you've got the prefrontal cortex. This is supposed to be the brain's CEO, the control center that handles rational thinking and, crucially, keeps those intense emotions from the amygdala in check. The most important part here? It's still under construction in teens. It's not done yet. I absolutely love this analogy because it just nails the situation perfectly. You've got this high-performance engine, but the brakes are still being installed. That natural imbalance is a huge reason why managing emotions can be so tough for teenagers. And here it is. This is the absolute crux of the whole issue. When you throw sleep deprivation into that mix, it basically just cripples those already weak brakes. The prefrontal cortex's ability to do its job just plummets, and it leaves that emotional engine of the amygdala running totally wild. So where does that weekend catch-up sleep fit in? Well, it is all about REM sleep. Think about it. During the day, stress and negative feelings build up like emotional junk. Then at night, specifically during your REM cycles, the brain gets to work. It processes all that stuff, sorts through it, and basically cleans out all that emotional waste. Catch-up sleep simply provides more time for this essential mental cleanup crew to do its job. But, and this is a big but, this doesn't mean sleeping till 3 p.m. is the answer. The science actually points to a very specific, very beneficial window of time. Let's take a look at what that is. This chart just lays it out so clearly. Over on the left, you see teens with no catch-up sleep, and they've got a high risk of depression. Now look at the middle. That's the sweet spot, 1 to 2 extra hours of sleep. That corresponds to the lowest risk. But then look what happens over on the right. See, when teens sleep for more than 2 hours extra, that risk starts to creep back up. And this is probably the point where those negative effects of social jet lag, that disruption to the body clock, start to cancel out or even outweigh the benefits of the emotional recovery. It's all about finding that balance. So let's pull all this together. What does this mean for how we, as parents and as a society, should be looking at teenage sleep? Honestly, it calls for a pretty fundamental shift in how we think. First, we just have to acknowledge the reality that a ton of teenagers are living in. Between super early school start times, mountains of homework, and all their other activities, getting enough sleep during the week is, for many of them, almost impossible. Their sleep is being systematically squeezed. And that leads us to this really powerful reframe from the researchers themselves. We should see that weekend sleep-in not as laziness, but as a biological defense mechanism. It's an instinctive, necessary response just to survive a high-stress, sleep-deprived environment. And here's the bottom line, really. When we criticize this behavior, or when we force a teenager to get up early on a Saturday morning, we might actually, without meaning to, be taking away the only tool they have to biologically recover and reset their emotions for the week ahead. And that kind of leaves us with one final, pretty heavy question to think about. If our kids actually need a weekly survival strategy just to cope, it really forces us to ask some bigger questions. This isn't just about sleep anymore. It's about the intense academic and social pressures we've built around them. What is their sleep trying to tell us about their world?